I want to congratulate you and We the World on the 20th anniversary of 11 days of global unity. Together, you, me, and we can create a better world and have fun doing it.
Welcome to the 11 Days of Global Unity Summit, celebrating the 20th anniversary of 11 Days of Global Unity. My name is Rick Ulfik, and I'm the founder of We the World at we.net and the co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity. Each year at the 11 Days Summit in September, we bring you visionary movement leaders and activists, profound dialogues and calls to action. And this year, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of 11 Days of Global Unity, we are featuring extended conversations with Dr. Jane Goodall and Dr. Riane Eisler, plus summit panels on each of the 11 summit themes, which range from unity to environment to human rights, freedom, and peace. For the full 11 Days Summit schedule, you can register for free by going to we.net and 11 Days of Global Unity.org. And 11 is a numeral, 11 Days of globalunity.org. You can watch replays of all the recordings, and you can also make a contribution to support We the World by going to we.net. Thank you. So before we bring on today's extraordinary speakers, I want to acknowledge some of our amazing partners who we support and collaborate with during 11 Days of Global Unity and all year round. The UN International Day of Peace NGO Committee, the UN Summit of the Future, the Unite for Peace Coalition, which includes Unity Earth, Peace Week, the Sign Network, One World, We the World, the Deep and Rapid Transformation Convergence at Cathedral Saint John the Divine, Pause the World in Times Square, and we'll hear from Paul Sladkus in a few minutes about that, and Pace a Bene Nonviolence Campaign and March. What an amazing movement representing literally millions of people working to achieve global unity, all working with We the World and the We campaign at we.net. Today, I'm excited that we will be joined by some of the people and global partners who came together to launch 11 Days of Global Unity in 2004. Troy Lush, Gemma Bulos, Diane Williams, Paul Sladkus, Deborah Moldow, Kaeshi Chai, and Andrew Kaen. So let's start with my dear friend and brother in spirit, the co-creator with me of 11 Days of Global Unity, Troy Lush. Hi, Troy.
Hello, Rick. Hello, everyone.
So
wonderful to be here.
It's great to see you. And Troy Lush is a consummate musician and activist who has dedicated his life to transforming society and the world. Troy was one of the organizers of the extraordinary 2003 Planet Work conference that I attended. Troy saw information about We the World at the conference. And about a month later, he called me and we were on the phone for 4 hours. You remember that, Troy?
I do, and not only that, but it was on a Sunday, and I picked up the literature from the conference that you had left there, talking about We the World, and I brought it home, and as you say, like some time elapsed, but I reread what you had written and the beautiful mission statement of We the World at the time, and I was completely moved and felt such deep resonance that I was just like, I need to talk to this person, and your phone number was there. It was a Sunday. I was like, he's probably, no one's going to answer. And I called, and it was a landline. And sure enough, Rick's in the office working tirelessly and picks up the phone. And we, like you said, we just had this epic
amazing
conversation. Yeah.
And eventually we co-created 11 Days of Global Unity, which launched in September of 2004. Mm-hmm. And Troy has become, since then, a governing board member of We the World. So welcome to the broadcast, Troy Lush.
Thank you.
So do you want to take a few minutes to remember? I mean, we already talked about that highlight of how we met.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, such instant resonance with you, Rick, and with the vision and mission of We the World. And one of the things I remember, there's so much we could talk about, but because we literally spent I would say thousands of hours developing the 11 Days of Global Unity, but in the beginning, I had a passion for doing something on the scale of Live Aid to alert the world to the serious challenges that we're facing. And I was kind of part of that passion was around just how of course, how urgent some of the issues for me personally was particularly ecological issues, and continues to be to this day. But a whole spectrum of issues, and I was just amazed at how little like the mainstream culture and mainstream media was really giving priority to these issues. And in many ways, it's still that's still the case. But so at the time, I was like, Rick, we have to do something. We have to do something on the scale of like a Live Aid. And so we started poking around for dates to produce something. Remember this? And
yes.
And we were like, well, what about the International Day of Peace in September? And then we started, looking around. Some other people were looking at other dates, and we just said, why don't we bookend it with September 11th to commemorate the lives lost with 9/11, the tragedy there, and then have that culminate in the International Day of Peace. And so that's how that came to be, because we had, well, first of all, we couldn't agree on if people we had different ideas about dates. But then we also realized we had way too much content for one day or even one weekend. And so we decided to spread that out over 11 days. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing about the International Day of Peace being put on one day, I don't know if you knew about that, Troy and others, but a guy named Jeremy Gilly was really trying to get a movement together to get the UN to officially put it on September 21st, because it was generally on the beginning of the General Assembly meeting every September, which was generally either the second or the third Tuesday of September, but we had the terrorist attacks. So the General Assembly was first was conceived of as being on the International Day of Peace. That was the day the General Assembly would gather to hear announcements about ceasefires around the world during the previous year. So that was the idea of the International Day of Peace being on the beginning, the first day of the General Assembly. But then the the terrorist attacks on September 11th kind of coincided with the International Day of Peace because it hadn't been officially put on September 21st. The resolution was there, but it didn't go into effect until 2002. So that's the idea of moving from fear to hope, from September 11th to September 21st with the International Day of Peace.
Yeah, thank you for that background.
Yeah. So one thing that was kind of funny for me, and I don't know if you remember this, but we, as you know, we were on the phone probably hours every day of the week, right?
It was incredible. Yeah.
Right. So, but the funny thing is, we didn't exchange photos of each other for that whole time. So in my mind, I had this conception of what you looked like, but I just made it up in my mind. So at a certain point, we actually saw each other for the first time after organizing on the phone for a year and a half, So when we saw each other, I said, no, this can't be Troy. Because I had another image in my mind,
Yeah, it's funny that happens way before Zoom.
Yeah.
Wait, do I have time to share one more memory?
Sure, sure.
So there's so many threads we could touch on, but one is we recognized early on that we needed some sort of statement of values that we could sort of point to and could be in a way the soul and the proclamation behind which all the events and the whole 11 days kind of stood, and or in front of which the 11 days stood. And after talking a bit, we realized, Rick and I realized that it already exists. It's the Earth Charter, and it's this profound document, the most vetted document in human history. And it's, they took years to distill the values and concerns of every nation on Earth, at least the nations that were part of the UN at the time. And so, and it was this beautiful, eloquent document. So we just were like, whoa, look no further. This already exists. But then we realized it's pretty long, and most people aren't going to take the time to pour through the document, although they probably should because it's so profound. But so Rick and I were talked about, like, well, what if we distilled that down? What if we could, shorten that? And Rick pointed to me. He's like, why don't you take that on? And I was like, okay. So I did my best, and I distilled the whole thing down to 11 lines, and we actually got the Earth Charter Committee's approval on the distillation. And then Rick brought it to Marshall Rosenberg and the nonviolent communication team. And Marshall is this incredible human being. And they sort of went over it with a fine-tooth comb. They combed forward, and they had one little revision. They made one little revision, and then
you remember what it was?
Yeah, there was one little value judgment in there. I think it was something about respecting nature.
I remember.
Okay.
It changed from human rights to human needs.
Oh, okay. That's a keen memory.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Well done. Yeah. So that's how that piece came together. And then, if some of you may recall that, so then Jane Goodall recited this with the audience at the big finale event in New York City in 2004. You know, the culmination of the 11 days, and it circulated in other places too. I think, didn't Marshall also read it with a group?
Yes, and also, who's that guy who's kind of a spiritual leader? He's a guitarist, and I forget his name, but he also took it to the Pope.
Yeah. That's right.
Maybe Deborah, you might remember him.
James Twyman?
What's that?
James Twyman or no?
Yes, you got it. Thank you.
Nice. Good memory. Yeah, James Twyman.
And Andrew, yeah. James Twyman actually got more than 10,000 signatures on this document because he used it and he did steps. I forget, it was steps to Assisi. And this was in 2005, I think.
Okay.
And so he used that during the 11 days, and they presented it to faith leaders, including the Pope, and they, that's amazing, right? And another thing, Andrew, who we're going to hear from in a few minutes, Andrew took an iconic picture of Jane Goodall signing that global declaration of interdependence. So that happened when she was on the stage with the million voice choir and everything. So anyway,
cool. Thank you. So many fond memories, and also, of course, the incredible million voice choir, which I hope we hear more about from Gemma.
Right. So we're looking forward to hearing from Gemma. So thank you, Troy.
Thank you, Rick.
Could you, have a few general questions for you and everyone on the panel who's coming up, besides the highlights of 11 days that you might want to mention, which you already talked about. What are you doing in your life now that addresses challenges faced by people and the planet? And how does your work contribute to expanding we consciousness that values the common good, so we can move more quickly toward global unity?
Thank you. It's an important question indeed. And before I answer, I do want to just say a deep, heartfelt thanks to you, Rick, for keeping the 11 days of global unity alive and thriving and expanding for 20 years. It's just incredible. And so big salutations to you. Thank you so much. To answer your question, I mean, it's kind of a kaleidoscope. It's always evolving. And there's always kind of both the meta crisis or poly crisis, if you wish, kind of keeps evolving, and some call it a hyper object. And I feel like the response is also a hyper object in a way where it needs to be nimble and constantly adapting. For instance, like the exponential tech advances in AI and other domains require a whole different response array. And so it's really just kind of staying nimble and staying informed, and both what I deem both tracking and coaxing emergence. So we're kind of constantly tracking, looking for opportunities to intervene and respond, and then also coaxing emergence. So that's kind of general, but in a specific regard, I've been working with a team on a project called Kinship, and it's kinship.earth for those who would like to take a look. And some of you may know Maggie Fox, who worked with Al Gore on the Climate Reality Project. And this is her new initiative. It's kinship. And the whole orientation is recognizing that the human worldview, the collective, predominant collective worldview, is broken, and it's largely rooted in like the notion of superiority and separation from one another and from the natural world, and that worldview and narrative needs to be repaired. And I know this is like so aligned with we, the world, and we.net and we consciousness. So with kinship, the orientation is towards the arts, towards music, towards narrative storytelling that reinforces this worldview of interdependence and non-separateness. And of course, with deep bow of recognition to traditions and cultures that have held that worldview for millennia, and also like a refreshing in current contexts of that worldview. And so it's an initiative I feel pretty passionate about, and it's very aligned with a nonprofit that I've been developing called Earth Songs, which brings together a couple of my passions, which are music and songwriting and music production, along with nature, reverence for and protection of the natural world. So Earth Songs is all about that, and seeing if we can inspire a global response to ecological challenges with using the power of music to inspire. So there's a couple of projects I'm involved with, but kind of always keeping an eye on the field and the polycrisis, and trying to go upstream to, causality, and instead of band-aids downstream, like can we go sort of upstream to worldview, to values, and to systems reform. So I'll pause there, but thank you so much for the question.
Okay, thank you, Troy. This is great. So now let's bring in our next speaker, which is Gemma Bulos.
Nice
Good
to see you, Rick.
you.
I think it's been about 20 years.
I know, it's amazing, right? This is like a family reunion. It really is.
It really is.
It's just amazing. So Gemma Bulos is a transformative impact social entrepreneur with 20 years of experience founding and coaching emerging social enterprises and programs that center around inclusionary and equitable practices. And Gemma created the Million Voice Choir in 80 countries for the launch of 11 Days of Global Unity in 2004. So welcome to the broadcast, Gemma Bulos, and you can talk about any of these things that we've been mentioning before, and look back, whatever you want. Anyway, it's so good to see you. Thank you, Gemma.
You as well. Rick, you look wonderful, and it's so nice to see everyone, Diane and Paul and Andrew and Troy. Troy was, he's the reason I'm here. Deborah, and oh my gosh, everyone here. It's thrilling to see you all again, because I have to say, when we built the Million Voice Choir and closed out the 11 days on September 21st, that was literally the day that changed everything for me. I mean, it started with September 11th, because I was supposed to be in the World Trade Center when the planes hit. So this sort of coming together and linking of September 11th, the song that I wrote, the Million Voice Choir, and and 11 Days of Global Unity just seemed like this beautiful, synchronous, inevitable, miracle. And thank you to Troy who brought me in, because I think what was the most thrilling for me was, where September 11th really sparked this need to find a way to be impact, have impact in the world and really promote peace in a way that was not bringing people together because of their, tragic, but because of tragedy, but to bring them together because of hope. And how I ended up, what I ended up doing was I wrote this song, and then I traveled around the world inviting people to sing it. And then the culmination of that was having people sing the song. The instruction was to have people sing the song from all over the planet, from, every hour at 9 o'clock, so that there'd be the song be singing anywhere around the world every hour of the day. And then it culminated in New York. And I actually mobilized, a very diverse choir to sing "We Rise with Me" at the closing of um, of the 11 Days of Global Unity. And, there was no bigger thrill to, one, be able to have done that, but also to have had uh, Jane Goodall sort of introduce us. And, she was, how many people can say Jane Goodall opened for you? No, I'm kidding. But it was a lovely, lovely, it just was the perfect culmination of the work that I'd been doing, mobilizing this choir. We had over 100 cities and 60 countries singing from all over. And um, but another thing happened, because it was lovely, but it was also melancholy, because this 7 minutes of global song and having people sing it from all over the globe was wonderful, but it was melancholy because now I was like, all right, I talked about peace, I united all these people, but now, what now? It's minute 7. What do I do now? Right. And so what happened was, what does peace look like on the ground? And as I was building the choir, I don't know if you remember, we used this metaphor. My sort of catchphrase was, "It takes a single drop of water to start a wave." And so I had met Diane, I had met Deborah, because I had sung at the United Nations Water for Life conference, because I was using that metaphor to invite people to see how powerful they were, as powerful as a drop of water. And because of that performance there at the Water for Life conference with Satish Kumar, they saw me there and then invited me to sing at the United Nations. And then here we are, I'm singing this. Uh, they also invited me to sing at the United Nations as well, at the United Nations International Day of Peace celebration with students and kids. And it was just such a profound time in my life, where when I gave into the faith, and and I really became of service to the unifying of people around the globe who also wanted peace, just like all of us, it changed everything. And then, when I realized that I needed to do something more after the 11 Days of Global Unity, I went really pragmatic and super practical. I actually started doing water projects. And so I founded two organizations and over the next 6 years, I founded two organizations in Asia and Africa. And we literally trained people and brought clean water to over 1 million people in Asia and Africa. Very practical stuff. And to me, that was super, very spiritual, in that we were uniting communities through women, because women are the ones who are the most uh, uh, affected or by the lack of water and sanitation, yet they're the least involved. And so in training them, not only did we uplift the women, but we also found the women having the capacity to bring community together, because they were bringing clean water, something that everyone in the community needed. And so my work ended up just being, and this was me stumbling into it. It was not something I ever imagined doing, yet it was this series of events with September 11th, with the song, with the Million Voice Choir, with, you know, um, the 11 Days of Global Unity and International Day of Peace, and then all of a sudden finding myself in this international development field. And it was such and it really was I to me it's what I would be putting on my in my obituary, right? It feels like the most important work I've ever done, and it really emerged from this journey from, you know, September 11th through all of these things I just mentioned to, you know, to the water stuff. Things have emerged since then. I've done other things, like I got invited to teach social entrepreneurship at Stanford and at some other top colleges. And I'm just finding myself doing even more around training the next generation to be able to change the world in profound ways, in practical ways like that. So you know, I have such a fond memory because I feel like it's such a huge, like it was such a huge pivot in my life that really sparked from everything, you know, from that 11 Days of Global Unity. So
That's so beautiful. Thank you. And it's great to hear how that changed your life. You know, we changed each other's lives
yes,
that day and for the rest of our lives, right?
yeah.
Amazing. So thank you, Gemma Bulos. Now let's hear from Diane Williams. Diane Marie Williams is the founder and president of the Source of Synergy Foundation, an organization committed to consciously synergizing individuals, organizations, and efforts by tapping into the infinite source of the collective potential to serve as a positive force for global transformation. And Diane is a founding governing board member of We the World. Let me say that again. And Diane is a founding governing board member of We the World, right? Diane, you helped launch We the World back when, even before 11 days. So
Yeah.
welcome to the broadcast, Diane Williams.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this 20th anniversary summit for 11 Days of Global Unity. I truly feel blessed to have been part of We the World in 11 days since, as you said, the very beginning, and also to be a member, of course, of the advisory board. And you and Troy and all of our distinguished panelists and all those that have contributed to these efforts are really, truly shining examples of dedicated, selfless service for the common good. So thank you so very much. So Gemma and Troy, thank you for sharing your powerful memories and for all of the amazing work that you have done and are still doing. So I'm going to take us down another trip down memory lane. So we had, I don't know if I should call it this, but the international launch of 11 Days for Global Unity 20 years ago at the United Nations World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg, South Africa. In this very week of August 2004, it started on the 26th of August in Ubuntu Village, which was a special site that provided the participants of the summit, including governments and UN agencies and NGOs and others, to unite on common ground to stimulate dialogue and to showcase best practices and to maximize partnership opportunities. And we know Ubuntu means the belief in a universal bond of sharing and caring that connects all humanity. And it's acting in ways that benefits the whole community. And sometimes we often hear that it's translated as I am, because we are. And it speaks to our interconnectedness and how what we do has an effect on the whole. And it's really about we consciousness. And at that time, I was a UN representative of the Tribal Link Foundation. And I was working with the late Pamela Kraft, an amazing person and founder of Tribal Link. And we thought that Ubuntu Village at the summit would benefit from having one area that could be a place of interconnection and a place where people could manifest the sacred. So we convinced the summit organizers, and I want to give a shout out in particular to a wonderful man that was our special angel named Dee, who was truly a champion of unity consciousness. And we asked him to give us some land in Ubuntu Village for free for what we called the sacred place. And it was a really special, magical place to launch 11 days globally at this UN summit, because it truly embodied global unity during the 11 days of its existence at the summit. I don't know if you knew that, Rick, but it was there for 11 days, the sacred place. And this sacred place welcomed everyone, not only individuals representing spiritual, religious, and cultural traditions, but also the security guards and the staff and the conference participants that wanted a quiet place to relax and soak in the peaceful vibes. And some came to meditate, either individually or as a group, for the best outcome of the summit in one of our straw meditation huts. And our friends, Doctors Desiree and JJ Hertog from the Academy for Future Science, and friends from the Brahma Kumaris and other groups led some of these meditations for global unity. And many indigenous leaders from around the world were present and shared their deep knowledge and ancestral traditions and ceremonies, like fire and water ceremonies to support our earth. And one special indigenous people we call Uncle, but his birth name is Anga Anga. I always say his name wrong, but Rick knows how to pronounce it right. A shaman from Greenland who was one of the main representatives of 11 Days of Global Unity in Johannesburg, was present the entire time and really held that space for unity. And his spiritual task given by his mother is to melt the ice in the heart of man and women. And I think we all know that that must happen in order to realize global unity and to have a respectful and harmonious relationship with our earth and all its inhabitants. And one of the main ways we can achieve we consciousness is through caring hearts that desperately want a world that works for all. And 11 Days of Global Unity was built on the foundation of love and our bond of interdependence with all earthlings. So the sacred place in Ubuntu Village was really the perfect venue for its global launch. And Rick, I don't know if you want to share anything about your memories of that before I talk about my work.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to add myself here. Back. Thanks. Yes, and you kind of enriched the concept of 11 Days of Global Unity with what you were talking about on the summit on sustainable development in Johannesburg, right? So yeah, so that's great, and there was a convocation that Angangak gave at that summit for Interdependence Day, which was launched, and that has become September 12th of 11 Days of Global Unity. So September 12th is the that day. We celebrate Interdependence Day, and that's when we talk also about the declaration, the Global Declaration of Interdependence that Choi was talking about. But anyway, thank you for all of this, and let's move on to our next guest speaker, which is Paul Sladkus. Paul is the founder of Good News Broadcast. The mission of Good News Broadcast is to find, create, and receive life-affirming, thought-provoking good news, entertainment, and events that are positive and the goal is to be upbeat, not beat up, right? And of course, Paul is the producer of the annual Times Square Peace Day event, which he can talk more about. And welcome to the broadcast, Paul Sladkus. And I forgot to mention, Paul was the MC at that big launch that we did with Dr. Jane Goodall and Marianne Williamson and all the amazing people that have been who are on this panel, and all the others involved with 11 Days of Global Unity. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, Rick, thank you very much. We've had and we continue to have a very long run creating good news and positive life and focus on kindness and peace and nonviolence, and I'm fortunate enough, I will say, that I do know everybody on this call as well, and for me that's a big honor, because we've all been in the same business of sorts, and doing. I also became an interfaith minister in the process of all this and spiritual, doing, I'll even say, God's work to help the world realize that it's a nice place to be, and that most of the world lives in peace, and try our best to figure out how to help those that are obviously confused enough to hurt somebody and are worse. I was a lucky guy when I was in high school. My mother was the librarian of the Temple Emmanuel here on Fifth Avenue. And my mom was very open-minded woman, a master's degree in the early 20s on library science. In any case, she gave me Reverend Norman Vincent Peale's book, The Power of Positive Thinking. And I've always, I don't know, I guess at that point, I still don't understand how people could think negatively. It makes no sense. Everybody, does their thing and goes about life. And as long as they're not hurting anybody, then, let's have compassion for each other. And not everybody does things the way we might do them, but as long as no one's bothering anybody, or let's move it all forward. So, I'm really blessed. I remember that day. In fact, I just asked Marianne Williamson to come to Times Square again. We had her here for Earth Day, and to announce people should go out and vote. We have this upcoming event. I encourage everybody to go to pausetheworldforpeace.org. We have a 5-hour live clean energy concert, and we have a very large peace friendship tree at Times Square, 26 feet long, 10 feet high, 14 feet wide, created by USA and China together in partnership in the American Oriental Foundation. And so we have the Om organization and Sister Jenna and a whole bunch of spiritual leaders. We'll start off with a drum circle and then a moment of silence, maybe with 150 monks and other interfaith people dressed in white. I will say, I see Deborah Moldow's on here, and she said, Paul, why don't you do this Peace Day that we already did with Reverend Susanna Bastarrica and James Cannings? We've been doing it in the band show, and I think everybody on this call probably has been involved with that as well. She said, "Why don't you do it with Monica Willard also?" These young ladies, and they're still young, and we're all still young. Let's stick on that thought. They suggested, "Why don't you do it in Times Square?" Yeah, CBS background, PBS. You know how to do the bigger shows, and So I don't know. I listen to them. No, they, and so we've been doing it, and the shows are getting bigger. We sent out a press release. It got picked up by 495 pieces of media last week. That's going to be, I think, maybe our largest ever. We got somebody that has 35 billion views, somebody with 35 million views, global leader, A.Y. Young. And then and we're going to do a Woodstock Forever, Peace, Love, and Hope. I did the 20th anniversary of Woodstock. We'll show a little of that movie. We have a Woodstock section. You guys are going. You have a lot more people to talk to. I thank you very much. And hi, Angel, and everybody else. Bye-bye. I love you all.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. And yes, right on schedule. Let's hear from Reverend Deborah Moldow is an ordained interfaith minister committed to assisting in the transformation of human consciousness for a culture of peace. She works closely with Diane Williams and the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. And she is founder and president of the Garden of Light, which provides an online platform for the emerging global spirituality. Welcome to the broadcast, Reverend Deborah Moldow.
Thank you so much, Rick, and I'm happy to be following Paul because he always leaves me laughing. And I do want to congratulate him on bringing the International Day of Peace to Times Square year after year. This is not a simple thing to do. And I know Paul has the determination and the positive thinking to make something wonderful like that happen. So I want to talk about the 11 Days of Global Unity. And I want to start as an interfaith minister from a spiritual perspective, because truly I believe that our highest possible goal at this moment here on this beautiful planet Earth is peace. Peace on Earth. It's a goal that has been in the hearts of humanity for forever and has not yet been achieved. And we have a United Nations. We have all the nations of the world come together at a common table. And I don't think that the United Nations has even been able to articulate the map to peace as clearly, as simply, and as powerfully as the 11 Days of Global Unity. So I worked in and around the United Nations for more than 20 years to spread the prayer, may peace prevail on earth. And so naturally became very engaged in the celebration of the International Day of Peace, both at the United Nations, helping the UN co-create the student observant that went on for so many years that Gemma mentioned that she had sung at. That was wonderful. And the International Day of Peace seemed like such a perfect moment for humanity to come together and at least spend 1 minute focused on peace on earth. And as Rick mentioned in his opening remarks, the International Day of Peace started as the opening day of the General Assembly. That was what was designated by the original resolution in 1981. And the UN used to open on the third Tuesday in September, which was always in the neighborhood of September 21st, but not exactly. And then the UN started moving the opening date of the General Assembly around, which made it really hard to know when the International Day of Peace was. So as Rick mentioned, Jeremy Gilley of Peace One Day, he lobbied the UN to change the date to September 21st as a permanent date so that we would all know when we were supposed to focus on peace. This was a good idea. But I want to go back to September 11th of 2001, that fateful day, because that was the last day that the International Day of Peace was not on September 21st. It was on September 11th, 2001. And the Secretary General and messengers of peace were actually in the Peace Garden of the United Nations, ready to ring the peace bell, as they do every year, when they heard the planes overhead that were coming toward the World Trade Center. So on that day, we experienced a tragedy in the United States. We were not used to being attacked, and the response worldwide was overwhelmingly compassionate and heart-opening. So there was a moment when the world came together in the spirit of peace. But as time went on and peace did not come. In fact, there were wars that were started on the basis of that moment in time. And every year there's a commemoration in New York City of the lives that were lost. But it took a visionary, Rick Ulfik, founder of We the World, and I learned today all about Troy Lush and his part in co-founding the 11 Days, to make the connection between that moment and that heart opening and our goal of peace on earth, and to connect those two times with these 11 days. 11 is a very spiritual number. 11 represents infinite possibility. But more than that, the 11 days give us this roadmap to peace. So we start by opening our hearts on September 11th, day one, with the theme of unity. And among our group of evolutionary leaders that the Source of Synergy Foundation started, and Rick is a member of as well, there's been a lot of focus on unity and oneness lately, that it is actually a worldview of unity and oneness that brings the hope of peace. So that's day one. Theme one is unity. Theme two, day two, is interdependence, which is just a fact of this world that we can no longer ignore. And yet so many people do. Theme three is the environment. And this focus on the environment has been so important for decades. We've known that we need to focus on the environment. But now, today, we are really seeing climate change and how it impacts every single one of us, no matter where you live. There's some aspect of the environment that is changing and that needs our attention globally as one human family. Then we move on to economic justice, because once we have a clean environment, we have clean water and clean soil and fresh air to breathe, then we can really begin to move into addressing economic inequality that is so pervasive around the world. And so that is part of health and wellness, which is the next day. I mean, you can see how beautifully this is organized to lead us to peace. And health and wellness is for everyone. But we particularly want to focus on the children and the youth who are inheriting this world and this level of inequality and pollution and all of the ills that mankind has not yet been able to cure. So children and youth, we need to empower. And then the next day is about women. And we've seen enormous strides in women's empowerment all over the world. And I live in Mexico, which has just elected its first woman president. So this is happening. I can't wait to see the day when the G7 of the United Nations come to meet, and it's mostly women with a couple of men instead of the opposite, the way that it's been lately. But women's rights are human rights. And even though the UN Declaration on Human Rights was passed a long time ago, there's still so much work to be done all over the world. And that leads us to the concept of freedom. Freedom, theme number 9. And freedom is a big word on both sides of the aisle in the US elections this year, because everybody wants to define freedom their way. But of course, we need to define freedom so that it works for everyone. And that brings us to a great freedom, which is the freedom from nuclear weapons. Disarmament is the penultimate theme of the 11 days of global unity. We have to disarm, first in our hearts, and then in the world, and particularly nuclear disarmament, which is, a threat of extinction that just hangs over our head every day. That's theme number 10, leading us on this beautiful map to peace on day 11, the United Nations International Day of Peace. And I'm grateful for this beautiful blueprint, because it tells us not only what the components of a culture of peace are, but how we get there step by step by step over 11 days. 11 days out of a year is not too much to ask for us to focus on these important elements of a culture of peace, not just peace where the soldiers lay down their arms, but peace that starts in our hearts and is a global expression of who we are as one human family. So thank you, Rick. Thank you, We the World. Thank you for the 11 days of global unity, and may peace prevail on earth.
May peace prevail on earth. And Deborah, I want to thank you. You were one of the people who helped to shape and decide on those 11 themes that you just went through. And I'm thinking you're kind of like a jazz musician who's using the chords to riff on for the 11 chords, the blueprint for global transformation, like the jazz interfaith minister that you are.
Thank you. I will never forget that call that we had with Monica Willard, who
Exactly.
represented the United Religions Initiative at
Right.
the United Nations, and you invited
Exactly.
us to dream into these 11 themes together.
And Monica had these historic words that led us to create the 11 themes. She said, 11 days, 11 ways. And then we all realized, wow, we can have 11 ways to address what we want to address through the 11 days. And that's where
the rest is history.
Exactly. So thank you, Deborah Moldow. So now let's hear from Kaeshi Chai, who talks about all of the things that people have been talking about, and maybe you can relive a little bit of what your part in launching 11 Days of Global Unity, and then of course let people know what you're working on now that can help improve the world. And I just want to mention what you're doing, your background, Kaeshi Chai is an educator, dancer, choreographer, designer, producer, and director whose life mission is to serve our precious planet and empower others through the vehicle of art. She co-founded Pure, and Kaeshi can say what that stands for. The Pure Globe, an international community focused on healing and social change. The Belly Queen Company and School, as well as DM NYC shows, which are featuring live music and dance. So welcome to the broadcast, Kaeshi Chai.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, I first met Rick in 2004. Pure had just launched. That was inspired by the shadow that had settled on New York City post 9/11. Myself and a group of 29 other dancers wished to bring more color, more joy, more happiness to the streets. And we went downtown to where the Twin Towers fell with 4 percussionists. And we danced and we prayed and we meditated. And that became an annual event. It started in July, and then we did progress it eventually to September around the 11 Days of Peace. And just, I wanted to mention a coincidence that We the World started in 1998, and that's when Belly Queen started, and Pure started in 2004, and that's when the 11 Days of Global Unity started. So we have that in common. Something else that I thought was interesting is I'm currently working on a choreography to a song called Earth Song. And I've been dancing to the song for 5 years. And I've been looking at the different interpretations. I often improvise, and hearing Troy mention earlier that he's working on Earth Song makes me very curious about his music. I will be debuting my choreography for Earth Song this Sunday in Miami. And I have a project called Nature Stories, which is about giving voice to stories of our beautiful planet through art, through dance, through music and poetry, and using science as a way to inform the creative process as well. And I also invite scientists to be part of the show. That's going to launch in Benicia. For the 7th time, I've been doing it I've been doing it in California over the past couple of months, and I've done 6 shows already, and now I'm up to 7th and 8th. And every time we do it, it's been a huge learning process and a gift. We have been launching the shows for adults as well as kids. Now I want to backtrack a little bit to Pure and just talk a little bit about my involvement with We the World. So we launched Pure onto the streets, and that stands for Public Urban Ritual Experiment. And we invited Rick to come and speak about We the World. We actually organized a little fundraiser for We the World, and he just showed up out of the blue. He had no idea who we were, but it was fantastic. And yeah, so it's been a real pleasure to collaborate with Rick. We've performed at the United Nations and at Lincoln Center and a whole bunch of other places with We the World. And yeah, that it's been really, really inspiring. I'm also part of Evolutionary Leaders, so it's really great to see Deborah, Moldow, and Diane here. It's a big reunion, and that's always really inspiring too. Deborah mentioned the importance of cultivating peace within ourselves, and for me, what that looks like is hanging out with people that operate at a higher vibration, making sure that I'm listening to podcasts created by inspirational thought leaders and spiritually evolved people that inspire me to be better and show up as my higher self. I've also imbibed in plant medicine, and that's helped dissolve my ego, at least gone through that experience and meet our planet Gaia. And it's going to sound really woo-woo, but that further reinforced my desire to share art in service to global unity and raising up global consciousness and reaching out to the next generation. And as a movement teacher, I help my students connect to themselves because many of us are feeling separated from not only the other and nature, but our own bodies. So that's really important too. And health is wealth. If you're feeling healthy and connected to yourself, you show up and you're more open-hearted, you're more patient, you're more likely to choose peace and respond instead of react. I'm also a big fan and a practitioner of nonviolent communication. So that's something that's really, really transformed the way I see the world. And I know that Rick Olphick is also really involved with nonviolent communication. And I also run creative labs to discover what stories people want to tell. And the methodology I use is holocratic instead of hierarchic, where it's a decentralized leadership. And even the most introverted person has an equal say in the creative process. And that's a little bit about me. If you're interested in finding out more, you can go to my website, kaeshi.com, kaeshi.com. Thank you.
That's so wonderful. And it's so great to see you. It's been a while. And thank you for coming up to me and saying, oh, we want to help We the World raise some funds. I was like, wow. Thank you. And let's keep our collaboration. Let's go back to collaborating because we haven't done that in a while. So I'm looking forward to that. I also wanted to just let people know that during that amazing launch of 11 days, you brought your dance company. 35 people went onto the stage, and it kind of brought the house down. We were blown away. That's all I could say. We were just amazed. And then we kind of worked it out with Amnesty. Amnesty International was a major sponsor of the launch of 11 Days of Global Unity. They put money into it and everything. And at that point, they were promoting this idea of there being an official label of genocide in Darfur, which would bring funding for the UN and all these things, and they wanted petitions. So I don't know if you remember, many of your dancers went around to the audience with these petitions, clipboards, to collect, so that Amnesty International would collect the signatures from the 500 people who showed up in that event. Isn't that amazing? I don't know if you remember that, but that was one of the high points.
Yeah, actually, technically, that day I was on tour in Europe, I believe. So I sent my group of dancers to your event. So I don't actually remember collecting.
Also, I don't know. You weren't there, is what you're saying.
Not at that event. I was at other events.
How do you like that? But you were spiritually there. And
yeah.
Anyway, your dancers were a big part of the launch of 11 Days of Global Unity. Very interesting. So now let's hear from our good friend Andrew Kaen. Andrew Kaen is executive producer and event manager and founder of the annual World Peace Earth Day celebration, which began in 2007. His passion for bringing people together in community for world peace and oneness is at the heart of all of his events. He is also the founder of Planet Heart, which is a project of We the World. And Andrew will do a sound healing and a poem. Welcome to the broadcast, Andrew Kaen. Good to see you, Andrew. I think you're muted.
Oh, technology. Hi, everybody. It's so blessing to be with all of you, knowing you all these years. Yeah, I actually met Rick Golfick a year before We the World was formed in 1997 at, I believe it was the Ethics and Politics of Meaning or something like that with Marshall Rosenberg. And in 1998, 2 years before the end of the 20th century, was a very, very powerful year. I mean, We the World was birthed. And it was actually just 2 years after I became telepathic and communicated with star relatives and Jesus Christ, who put me in a permanent state of Christ consciousness oneness, and started getting huge downloads, transmissions via poetry and songs on helping us remember who we really are, all one global family with Mother Earth and all living things, and the awakening of humanity to oneness. And so I was so privileged and very excited to have been one of the core coordinators to help launch 11 Days of 2004, 11 Days of Global Unity in 2004. Also in 1998, I actually went to Armenia for the May Peace Prevail Society's event, and I believe I met Deborah Moldow there with James Twyman, who we mentioned earlier. It was this amazing event, and that's when I became introduced to the May Peace Prevail Society, and Reverend Deborah Moldow back then, and for many years after, was a representative of that. And so in 2004, at the 11 Days of 11 Days, I remember it very well. I actually remember helping for Interdependence Day, I believe it was September 12th, that I helped organize and produce one of the events during 11 days, which took place at Webster Hall in New York City. And I got a bunch of the performers together and put together the program and the publicity and all kind of stuff being part of the launch. It was very exciting to do that. I really loved like putting that together and manifesting that for a benefit for this launch. And it was just, it's just this transformational global movement with so many global partners that have grown so much over the years. I just am honored to have been with Rick Golfick and all of you to be part of this amazing, oh my God, I'm getting chills. I've been getting chills this whole call, by the way. I don't know online if you guys are too, with the fact that we're all together on this planet helping to really unite and co-create for a better world for all. I just want to say also something very powerful happened in 1998 with the transmissions. One of the first major transmissions I got was all about waking up and working with others. I'm not going to be sharing that poem, but I just wanted to say that also in 1998, God spoke to me, and God, Creator, told me if you take the last letter of Earth and you put it at the beginning of the word, it spells heart. We are all one heart beating with Mother Earth, Gaia, and all living things. And I got the slogan also from God Creator. It was one planet, one race, one heart. We are all one. And I did remember after going to the Rainbow Gathering in 1999, I got the domain planetheart.org, which is still active. And in 2007, okay, after 3 years after. Oh, I just want to say one more thing about the 11 days launch. I remember very vividly the last day, September 21st. It was so profound that it's still imprinted in my soul and heart, as it is with all of us. Meeting Jane Goodall, hearing her, Mary Williamson at what was called the Limelight in New York City, a very famous music hall. It was just amazing. So in 2007, what happened is Creator God came back to me and told me a message, very strong. It was so powerful. I mean, it was like a burning desire that I had to do this. God said, you must create an Earth Day event, but not unlike any others, because all the other Earth Day events are usually focused just on the environment. But God specifically said, infuse it with world peace and unity. So I birthed Planet Heart with Rick Olphick and We the World under me as the umbrella. And my heart and soul was singing as I was producing this. It wasn't easy. I did it in like 4 months. I didn't know how I was going to do it. We did it in the West Village by the Washington Square Park and it was in a theater, Crane Theater. And it was the first annual Planet Heart's first annual World Peace Earth Day celebration, and Diane Williams, who was one of the speakers. And actually, that very first year, Junali, who's on the board, was a speaker in representing We the World, because that year, and that was the only year, it's the 17th year, that Rick was not there. I don't remember why, but anyway, Deborah Moldow also, and Paul Sladkus was the MC that very first one, and Deborah Moldow was with several of them, part of it. So, and Kaeshi, I remember very well meeting her with Pure, and it was just so lovely. And when we celebrated the 20th anniversary of We the World, I remember helping produce that, and Kaeshi was part of that, which was really wonderful. Anyway, this Earth Day celebration that I've been doing, it's really about interconnectedness, that global unity and peace. And we're all doing our part to wake up humanity and bring peace on Earth. And I'm so honored to meet all these people I've met over the past years, last year being the 25th anniversary of We the World. And I just love it. I also want to say that I do vibrational healing, vibrational sound healing, and all the poems were me, as I said, were channeling songs. I use my voice as an instrument to bring in light language of higher dimensional frequencies to bring peace to a state of oneness and peace. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be sharing a vibrational healing sound activation. But before I do that, I just want to share a little snippet of one of the songs that I was given. And we can all sing it together who's online. If you want to, no, no, it's okay. You'll get it. It's We Are the Peacemakers of the World. It goes, we are oops, let me put sound on, hold on. We are the peacemakers, makers of the world. We are the peacemakers, makers of the world. We are the peacemakers, makers of the world. We bring the light to unite, to bring peace on earth. We need to join as one we are one. And now everybody who's here with us online and all the presenters, I ask for you to close your eyes and receive the transmissions of the sound and words. And before I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start right now. But the name I just want to let you know the name of the poem. It's called "The Calling Harkens." So after the sound vibration that I do, it'll lead right into the poem. So everybody, close your eyes. Makeo, 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 we are one. Feed the cries of hope across the great divide, from oceans to the sea, from the sea to the hills, from the hills to the mountain, from the mountains to the trees, from the trees to the grass, from the grass to the flowers, from the flowers to the touch of man and woman. Feed the cries of hope towards the way home. We ask, we plead, we seek to see. The knowledge is golden, the time has come. The moment has arrived towards the way home. We ask, we plead, we seek to see. Over the hills and through the lands abroad, across the great divide to the outer plains of our galaxy. The knowledge is golden. The time has come. The moment has arrived for us to awaken to the one truth that shall set us free. In connection to the universal shift of the triumphant beat of the planet, the time has come. The moment has arrived for us to awaken. Grasp your hands across the land, across the oceans, across the great divide. It is time to unite together, for the master plan is to uncover what lies beneath. And within each of our core being, our spirits call upon us to respond to our paths and share our calling with others, to unite in full force, together as one, together at last, to finally reclaim what is inherently our divine creation to the paths that join as one. Let us come together now and feed the cries of hope, to replenish the hope with the dawn of a new awakening for all to encounter, and let us put wonder to it all and wake up to our dreams, to finally reclaim what is inherently ours. Our divine missions are upon us. Our spirits call upon us to respond to our paths and share our calling with others, to unite in full force, together as one, together at last. Our heartbeats beat as one, as the heart of the planet beats in harmony. Each of our spirits connected together, our heartbeats beat as one. And the time has come for us to truly gather together and feed the cries of hope, turning our cries to joy. Rejuvenation of our inner child awaits us, turning our cries to joy. Let us all join hands in spirit, in dance, in harmony, in peace, and in play. May peace prevail on earth. Amen. May peace breathe. May peace prevail on earth. And I want everybody who's watching online to repeat after me 3 times. And everybody who's with us right now on this call, unmute your call and let us say, may peace prevail 3 times. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, everyone who's been part of this family reunion for the 20th anniversary of 11 Days. Did anyone want to say anything before we close?
Well, I can say something before we
Sure.
close. Deborah and Kaeshi mentioned youth, and I think it's essential that consciousness begins at the earliest age possible. And one way is to incorporate global education in school curriculum so children can learn the beauty of various cultures around the world and be introduced to the concept of global citizenship, where children can see themselves as a part of a global community responsible for the well-being of our planet. And this could include exploring, developing, and actively living values such as peace and love and compassion and freedom. Deborah mentioned freedom, so that later this is woven into the fabric of our society through the actions of these young people and become a sustaining force for human progress. And Andrew mentioned the heart and his planet heart. And Andrew, that was very powerful. And I think 11 Days of Global Unity is really about educating the heart so that our hearts, minds, and actions will be unified and we can live the values that will create the world that we all wish to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And thank you all for participating and helping to celebrate our 20th anniversary of 11 Days of Global Unity. I think this has been incredibly amazing and awesome of what everybody had to say and being together. And I want to thank all of you who are watching this and for being part of 11 Days of Global Unity in general and the 20th anniversary. Please go to we.net to get involved and even make a contribution if you want. And it's all about we, right? Let's go from being a me society, which is like this is an M, and this is the W. So let's go from being of this being a me society to a we society. That's why we launched we.net. So together we can create a world that works for all. Thank you all so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.